let's call this meeting Recreation Committee to order. This meeting, all the meetings of this committee are open to the public. Proper notice has been posted and given to the press in accordance with Wisconsin statutes. The citizenry may be aware of the time, place, and agenda of the meeting. Roll call.
Gunnison,
Here.
Gage,
Here.
Lidke, Stelzner,
Here.
and Megan Bain.
Here.
Need a motion to approve the minutes from the June 14th, 2016 meeting.
I make a motion to approve the minutes from June 14th, 2016 meeting.
I'll second it. All in favor? Aye. Carries. Citizens appearances. Doesn't look like any. All right, so number 4, discussion on digging or metal detecting in the parks. Referred from the ordinance committee.
Yes, so just a real quick reminder, I have limited control now on microphones, not these 3, but I can turn you on and turn you off. For the recording, we do need your microphone to be on. So when it's on, it'll have a red light. You'll hear it over here, but it's helping with the audio, but it also hits on the recording. So just a note there. I can only have 3 on at a time, so I'll try to be cut mine in and out when I need to. Usually we'll have the chair of each committee keep theirs on because they're in and out. And then from there, when we get this all up and running, I'll be able to point and I can turn them on and turn them off if I need to, but if you guys are kind of aware, it's the mouth with the symbols coming out of it, that's the button that you hit. And if there are 3 people already on, you will flash green. So, I do have a packet up here. If you're able to see the screens, we can get you to the screen as well. And you know what? I do not have the ordinance itself
No,
in
you
the
don't.
packet, so we posted this about busy time yesterday afternoon.
That's all right.
We could probably pull it up, but basically the copy of the ordinance.
I don't make this one here bigger.
Oh, here it is. I've got paper
He
copies.
has to do it. We have no control.
So they said. You make it.
Oh, we can.
Well, you got it right here, otherwise.
It's a pretty straightforward, simple ordinance. What it's called is turf protection on public property. And so what we're talking about is who's allowed to dig public property. And specifically, our ordinance says, except as authorized by the Recreation Committee, which is you, no person shall dig into the turf of any city-owned park property for any purposes whatsoever, or remove any trees or flowers. Again, absent authorization by the Rec Committee, the use of metal detectors and digging for buried objects on city park property is prohibited. So the gist of this is that we have had a number of people that come into the office and ask for the ability to use a metal detector or dig in the park. And the answer we give them is the ordinance says no unless you go to the Rec Committee. And I had mentioned at the ordinance committee that in the 3.5 years I've been here, there have not been any people that have come to ask for that permission. People have asked to be able to do it, but they haven't come to this board. The ordinance committee had asked, because it references the recreation committee, they wanted to know if it would be allowed by the rec committee, what does that mean? So what would be a good authority if somebody would come and ask you for permission? What standards might we have? They went pretty deep into it in their discussion. I believe Nick is the chairman. I think Nick had watched the meeting and kind of has an idea of it too. But in general, what they're looking for is if the rec committee is able to approve this, what would they approve? Would they approve it? That's the question. And again, it was voted on at the ordinance committee to refer that to the rec committee. And that's all I have to say on it for now. I'll turn it over to you guys. So again, if you do need to jump in, hit your button.
Mine's not. So I looked at about 30 different ordinances through state, and the majority of them read exactly like ours. Some, like Manawa, just flat out say, no, you're not going to use metal detector in the park. Patrick's favorite, Weyauwega, says no, with the possibility of getting a one-time, one-day exemption. Right? I personally would prefer to leave it exactly as is. I don't agree with using metal detectors in the parks. We know from our newest pavilion what kind of stuff has been coming up and how much trouble we have. It was a dump, right? I don't think we need people digging holes in the park. I don't think that we have the police manpower to be enforcing it and going around and policing it. And I also don't think you ever want to put dimensions into an ordinance. That by putting dimensions, you are thereby locking yourself in with no freedom of movement. You don't ever want to back yourself into a corner and say 8 by 12 or whatever. Everything should be left up to an individual case-by-case basis. Anybody else?
I guess I got a comment on that. Could it be put in here that up to the discretion of the city administrator? The reason I say that is, what happens if somebody's at the park and they lose a watch, they lose a ring, or something of that nature on a Saturday or a Sunday, and they come to the city administrator asking if they could, how are you gonna get approval from all of the board to do that?
Yep,
I would be fine with the city administrator and not the council,
That's what Appleton has, is the
Right,
park director or something like that. They've got similar to what we have,
Right.
but they leave it up to the park director.
right. They leave it up to the director of the Parks and Rec, and I'm fine with that. But you have to come in and get and it'd be the same thing, a case-by-case basis,
Yep.
I just don't think that it should be opened up.
Well, that way, if they come in here, that way, you can tell them guys if there's somebody digging too.
Yeah.
I like what Dewey said is you're limiting it. I mean, if somebody loses their engagement ring or piece of jewelry, it's a needle in the haystack. Okay, I'm all right with that, but and I think the ordinance is good the way it is. You might just need to add language to allow
Right,
somebody in the building to say, okay, you have a few hours, go look for it, so you're avoiding having, because I've seen them in town before, and they don't dig little chunks,
no, they don't.
they dig and they dig deep.
Right, and
So-
there's a lot of stuff to be digging there, and I don't think we want them digging it up. I know that when I put my patio in the backyard, drove a bobcat through there, I still have stuff now coming to the surface because in days gone by, everything just went out the back door. So I have chunks of pottery and things that are floating to the surface now that I disturb the crust. And we had that with our new pavilion. We still have stuff floating up. It's, we don't need somebody digging holes everywhere. And I don't think that you have the manpower to police that.
I can, just a quick comment. I can see where people would wanna do this, and because it's an ordinance, it covers the entire city, public property everywhere in the city. But
Right.
now, I'll just make a comment, which is to reiterate what you're referencing, is when we built that new shelter, we spent, I bet you, a good $10,000 in cutting out the landscaping and re-landscaping it because we disturbed so much there that we were pulling glass shards, metal, just junk that was coming up. Now the problem is, people that are into this type of a hobby, that's like an attraction, that's what they're looking for, and on our end, it's been, the money we've spent has been to try to keep it down so that it's safe for the kids. And we went, when we converted that shelter to a garage, we dug no more than 4 inches deep to get a nice gravel drive into there, and we pulled half a dozen railroad spikes out that were literally just laying within 4 inches, just under the grass. And I've talked to Nick as the chair of this committee, and I've mentioned that I've got some reservations about doing any digging in the park for any of our projects, just because everything we dig up, we're battling stuff, and if we start becoming an unsafe playground, that's something that you can never shake, and I don't know that we want to do that. Or go there,
Could you state it though in the ordinance that it's just above ground metal detection?
Yeah, well, the ordinance itself we could keep. What we probably wanna, or if you're gonna change it to add specific staff language, the ordinance would be fine, it's just on our end. We then could develop some internal policies on what would be allowed and what situations would we allow. And those would come back probably to you guys or to the city council at some point to approve it.
Right. I would never, because you can't say above ground only, unless you're gonna stand there and watch them. If I've got a metal detector and you're telling me I can only do surface, but I get something below the surface, I'm digging, you know? I mean, unless Jerry's gonna stand on top of them and watch them,
We're not.
they're gonna dig. And the same thing, if you said an ordinance that says, well, you can only dig a hole that's 6 inches deep, they're gonna keep going down until they find what they want. They're not gonna stop at 6 inches and say, oh, you know, that's a little long.
Right.
If they were gonna do that, they'd pick up their dog poop and they're walking their dogs. So, I would, like I said, I would be okay with amending this to take out the approval by the Recreation Committee and insert approval by the city administrator.
I believe procedurally,
That would have to go to ordinance, wouldn't it?
probably.
We
So
make a
if you wanna
recommendation.
make a recommendation back, and I know that gets to be busy, but there's a trail anyway that says the ordinance committee wants the rec committee to look at it. And if you make a motion here, directing it back, the good news is we get it in the minutes. And if 2 years down the road, somebody asks, well, what did we ever do with that? At least we'll have it in the minutes to say, here's what the direction was.
Right.
You know, obviously it'll go, if it's next month, it's gonna go to the ordinance committee and they'll take it up and ship it to council. But if you've got recommendations or anything that you wanna add to this and you wanna send that to the ordinance committee, that's appropriate.
Any other thoughts?
No. Or you just make a motion to have the city administrator make the call.
So you wanna make a motion to send it back to ordinance
Ordinance.
with our recommendation that the Recreation Committee authorization is transferred from the Recreation Committee to the city administrator.
Yeah, and I'll mention this at the ordinance committee, but what I'll say is the administrator or designee, so that
Right.
that way we've got.
No, if you're not here
Whoever
for
Public
good.
Works is there too,
Right.
Right.
so if you wanna make that recommendation, you made a motion, or you're making that motion?
I'll second
Okay, motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries. All right. Next is a discussion on the annual fireworks events. Things went well. One of the things I talked to Patrick about was 3 years now, we've had a band. For 3 years now, people have not really interacted with the band too much. So one of the things I was considering was dropping the band and taking that $600 and maybe we should be looking at pricing bouncy houses or something for kids. Still keeping it free. And then maybe possibly looking at a service group serving food. Whether it be the fire department, whether it be the police department, K-9 unit, sheriff's department. Somebody that could, you know, not opening up maybe, but keeping it to a service group such as that and not a free-for-all.
BFW or something.
VFW? Yes. But just discussion right now. Just stuff to think about. What do you want to do for next year?
Just to add a couple comments, I would say for 3 years now, we've had the idea that this was a free to the public type event. And I think I've been very public with this committee over the last couple of years that in a way, I can feel like we're getting off a little easy by saying, okay, we pay for the fireworks, we pay for the band, and then we don't really have a lot of effort other than that. And we can say that it's free and open to the public, and it is, but the band has been up and down. Trying to get a band has been up and down. Now, of course, because it's the couple weeks after, people are hearing that it was significantly better this year, I think, with the band and the fireworks, and people were noticeably more appreciative of the event. We have 2-3 bands now that weren't available that are calling, trying to get booked for next year. So I don't know that we'll run into that problem again, but I think if we wanted to move away from a band, that could be okay. If we were going to keep a band, I think we would maybe recommend some different times.
Right. I mean, it just to think about it, we got a few months. Obviously, we'd like, if we're gonna have a band, we'd like to book them sooner than later.
What do
Although
we spend,
sometimes that
what do we
doesn't-
spend on total?
So it's,
600.
I mean-
6 to 800. Well, no, it depends. Now, this band was 600, but then we also rented the sound equipment. We've paid more for other bands that had their own sound stuff. So it's,
So what do we spend on the whole event?
well,
so it's $5,000 for the fireworks, and that's been the same price every year. Now, every year they've been putting more and more into it and telling us, hey, we're going to give you some more. And right now we've just been staying at $5,000 for the fireworks. The bands, the first year when we paid Third Wheel, it was $400. Third Wheel now is more than that. For the people that know, they're up in the $700 to $800 range, I believe now, and they're also less available because they're more in demand. When we had Danny Darren, I want to say it was like in the $350 range. And then when we went with this band, I believe we talked here about 5 or 6 different bands. They all wouldn't be able to make it, and then finally we got a reference to this band, which was really 3 gentlemen that are in their own bands that do this on the side. And because they're on the side, they don't have their own equipment, so they need to rent their equipment. And so what we paid was $600 for the band, and it was about $500 to rent the sound equipment. But if you've been there the 3 years, which a lot of us have, you'll know that when the guy came with the sound equipment, it was a considerable setup. And it was probably worth that amount. Now, we justified paying a little bit more this year because out of the same line item, we used to buy garland in the winter that we would put up, live garland that ran us $1,500 to $1,600. We cut that out in favor of buying banners that we saved immediately $1,000 right off the top. So we had the money there to then spend it on the band. Moving forward, we're gonna have even more savings because the banners are going to last longer than 1 year. So we're looking at $5,000 for the fireworks. I would say realistically, we probably have $1,000 to $1,500 above that for whatever else, based on the way we budgeted for what we call as celebrations and community events.
Only thing I'd like to add though is like you mentioned, I think the band did real well the hour before the fireworks. And if we would look at going with a band again, I think an hour before and maybe an hour, hour and a half after the fireworks. Because I think that would definitely get the interaction a lot more with everybody, because everybody was, once they started coming here and the band that was there, it was really good. So.
that was something we had discussed. But the band itself was not interested in staying after the fireworks.
For this time.
This time.
For this time,
You know,
yeah.
so, but we had talked about that too, because we thought to keep it later, you know. And maybe if we had food, if we had somebody serving, like the fire department,
I hate to just volunteer people like that, though, so
like,
that's
the fire department.
Throw you
But
in.
I mean,
We
just
have,
saying,
you know, I mean, we haven't volunteered to do anything more than just pay somebody to come and shoot off fireworks and play a guitar, you know.
But, no, I'm just giving you a hard time with the fire department there, but somebody like that, if they were serving food afterwards, because we do have the whole fairgrounds, we could keep it going longer. Because we always do it on the 3rd, means most people have the 4th off, so we could expand that way.
I guess I'd like to see the board look at doing one more year with a band and splitting the times. And if it don't work then, okay, then go away from the band idea.
And if you did want to do a little more on the kid end, you still could do something. It doesn't have to be a $1 million bounce house, but it could be something so that when the parents are listening to the band, the kids are still there,
Right.
but they're semi-entertained. That you can be like, oh, we'll go do kids things for a half an hour, then we're gonna listen to the band for a couple minutes. As a parent, it's hard, especially once you get more than one, to keep them all entertained with a singer.
Well,
So
right.
so looking at a bounce house is great, but then how are you keeping the parents entertained?
By not having to entertain their
By
kids.
not having to entertain their kids. Again. Just, I mean,
Well,
if
no.
if the extra money is
Right.
there, spend up to that 600 or 500 on the band. Do a couple hundred, and kids see where that takes you.
Like I said, we just wanted to get discussion going right now, to look at things like this, get people thinking about it. What could you do, because now is the time to be planning for next year,
Right.
so we don't have to worry about it in June. So that's why it's on here, is just to get the creative juices flowing. Think about what you'd want for your kids, for adults, whatever.
Start thinking of things.
Think of the things, yeah. All right?
So would it be safe to say that the 5,000 for the fireworks and maybe a $1,500 budget for extra activities?
Yeah, definitely.
So another thing, because the creative juices are flowing, we pay money out to a person that has a bounce house or whatever. Those are typically external people, not within the community. So you talked about doing food with like the fire department. What about, is there a school group that, I'm not sure what's all in the school anymore, but like the FFA that would come and do like a mini kids carnival, that you would give them $300 towards their organization. I mean, those types of outlets I think are good to look at, because kids need to volunteer, they need to help out. There's programs that would love the extra cash. I mean, I did a lot of that.
Right, well,
I think it's a good way to keep the money in the community rather than shopping it out always.
Oh, it is, and like I said, I just threw out the bounce house as just an
Right.
idea. It wasn't,
Yeah.
it was just, okay, we'll do
It's a
something
fun
for
one.
the kids,
Yeah, absolutely.
But absolutely, I mean, anything, like I said, it's just thoughts right now. All right, so that'll stay on for the next couple months, so if you think of something,
Absolutely.
or somebody, or if you talk to somebody that, that has some interest or something like that, we'll keep it on there,
Perfect.
all right? Administrator's report?
Just a couple notes, we did talk about the comprehensive outdoor recreation plan and a process to update that. I did meet with the Jessica Beckendorf, who is the community outreach educator with the UW Extension. She does what Mike Colas used to do for the county. She has a couple of contacts that she'd like to talk to about whether, and she's got maybe three options. One would be, would her office offer to help us through a review of our comprehensive outdoor plan, which lays out all of our parks, all of our facilities and recreational opportunities and potential opportunities to expand what we have. And for a little bit of background for a couple of you, I think most of you have been around here, but our plan was from 2004, the plan that the last time we did this. And we paid Foth, our engineer, to do it, and it was in the neighborhood of about $5,000 to update this plan, or to create the plan. And the reason why you have one, the best we can tell is that the DNR, when you're looking for grant funding, the DNR is gonna ask if your corp, is what they call it, is up to date. And up to date means that it's within 5 years that you've either created it or updated it. And ours was 2004. We're now in 2016. So what we would be looking to do is take our document we have existing, and the rec committee and the chairman had asked that we could have somebody, rather than pay maybe $4,000 to $5,000 to have somebody professionally come in and run a process, is there another resource that we have, either with the UW Extension or the county or East Central Wisconsin Planning Commission, which is another entity that does this type of stuff? Is there somebody willing to help us out through that still gets this done, but maybe doesn't charge us as much money? And so Jessica from the county is looking into this. She's got a couple different options that she was going to meet with me this morning on, just to run through for tonight. Either she was gonna come this morning, or she was gonna come to the meeting. And she wanted to come this morning, and then with the incident we had yesterday, we put that kind of on hold. So she is planning on coming to the next recreation committee meeting.
Okay.
Talk to you guys about that. One other update that she has is that we had talked about first impressions in our community and other communities, and there is a partner type program where adults from another community will go to your town and talk about their first impressions and their thoughts on housing and activities and restaurants and things like that. And then if we would have somebody come here, we would have a group that would go there and do the same thing, and at the end then give a report. And we were talking about working a partnership with adults, and what happened was a similar program with students and kids got pulled together a little bit quicker than the adult program. And what happened was we actually did get a partner with Hurley up north, and a group of our kids, which I think was mainly FFA related kids, had gone with Mrs. Dykes. They went up to Hurley for a couple days. Each kid was given $20 to spend in the community, and then they report back on what do they think for housing. Can they see themselves living there? You know, where would they live if they had to move there? Those types of things. And about a week and a half ago, we had a group from Hurley come here, and the problem with that is they don't want to tell you they're coming because they don't want you to dress up to town and then give them a big welcome mat. They want it to be organic, which it is. And so our kids went there, their kids came here, and what they need is about a month and a half, 2 months to formulate a report. And somehow they want to either report to the full city council or the recreation committee, or maybe a mix of everyone. But the kids from Hurley most likely will connect either through Skype or video chat rather than have them travel from up there. But that's kind of an interesting program
Yeah,
too.
that's cool.
We would be looking for an adult type trip. I know how that sounds, but the adults would then do the same type of thing. I immediately regret that use of all those things, but we would have the grown-ups we'll do the same thing. So, a long day. So, but it sounds like it was a pretty good, cool thing, and it'll be pretty cool to get a report on that too. The only other thing that I do have is, I think it does need to be acknowledged or addressed, is yesterday we did have an incident at the swim lake, and it was very much an accidental drowning of a 19-year-old. And I know Brandon and the police department issued a press release last night. Weyauwega was here last night, the others were here today. And we've got information up to them. It's something that we're reviewing yet and investigating, but by all accounts, it sounds as though our staff did fantastic for what we would expect them to do. And again, these are 16 to 20-year-old kids that we expect are going to be lifeguards at the swim lake, and it's a pretty big job. And I think they're realizing that I think they know how big of a job it is, but maybe somebody like me who doesn't always think about that. It's a lot that we're asking these kids to do. And from all accounts, it sounds like what they did basically blew away some of the emergency responders on what they came upon. There were some circumstances that contributed that didn't help the situation at all. And I'm sure at some point those will be discussed on some level. But for right now, it's important that you know that the kids seem to be doing well. And I don't know that you can be doing well, but you know, from when we talked to them, we've had resources available to them. It's been a long day and a half, but it seems like things are coming back together where we will reopen tomorrow. And a lot of people are looking forward to get back to work and to get back to swimming. And I'm looking forward to that too. And that's really all I've got on that. I don't know if there's been quite a bit that's been said, and in the media we've had some things out, and we've heard quite a bit of positive from the community, and that's important too. So, and that's all I have.
Very good, thank you. Are there any such other matters as authorized by law?
There are.
There are.
There are not. I'm
Oh.
sorry. The camera. The only thing I do have is if you want to set a meeting date.
Well, what's coming next?
Yeah.
So, we're looking at Tuesday the 13th,
Yep.
okay, 6:30,
That'd be good.
all right? Okay,
Could we put on the agenda for that meeting, a potential another, community event for next year? And I'll explain on that at that next meeting.
Absolutely.
Okay, we did for a long time, we had a standing item to
Yep.
discuss annual events or year-long events,
Right.
and so I mean, we could slide it under that. Have you come and explain that then too. Sure.
Really, because the fireworks could fall underneath that.
Yeah,
Could just be
Yep.
discussion of events. Doesn't, because they're all, so, absolutely.
good, very good.
Alright. I shall look for a motion to adjourn then.
Okay, make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Alright.
Alright.
7:02.